Before I start this video, I'd like to thank JT for bringing this next case to my attention. One of my favorite mysteries to cover is the missing 411 cases because they are just so strange. But I'm not sure if this case is an official missing 411 case, but it sure seems like one. Although in most missing 411 cases, there are usually only 1 or 2 people involved. In this one there are 5. But there are so many things in this disappearance that just makes no sense. Some even refer to it as America's Dyatlov Pass. Now this all started on February 24th, 1978, when Jack Hewitt, William Sterling, Jack Madruga, Theodore Wire, and Gary Mathis left Yuba County to go see a basketball game in Chico, California, but they never returned. Now these young men were a little bit special. They were able to hold down jobs, but some things were difficult for them. They all met and became best friends at a program called Gateway that helps people with special needs. So when they didn't return from the basketball game, they were reported missing, and the authorities looked into this right away. Now not too long after they were reported missing, a ranger spotted their car on an isolated mountain road about 70 miles away from where the basketball game was. It was later confirmed that they did attend the basketball game according to eyewitnesses. So what made them go 70 miles in the wrong direction and just leave the car in the middle of nowhere in freezing cold weather? At first, investigators thought that they must have got lost, then they ran out of gas, so they got out to try to get to a place of warmth before they froze to death. But that wasn't the case, as their car was perfectly fine. There was nothing wrong with it. It had plenty of gas. And after weeks of searching this area, there were no signs of these 5 young men. Now there was an eyewitness who believed that he saw them that night before they went missing. Joseph, a 55-year-old man, was driving up the same road to see how the conditions were at his lodge. And while he was driving, it was snowing pretty hard and his car got stuck. So he went outside to see what he can do. And while he was trying to free his car from the snow, he felt a sharp pain in his chest, and he believed that he was having a heart attack. So Joseph, scared out of his mind, went back inside his car and hoped and prayed that someone would come along and help him. Then a couple of hours later, he saw headlights in front of him. He thought he was saved. Joseph stated that he saw 5 men and a woman with a baby get out of the car. But they weren't walking towards him. They were acting strange. Joseph had no idea what they were doing. So he rolled down the window and started yelling for help. Now they weren't that far away from him, but it was like they couldn't see or hear him. And this kind of freaked Joseph out. Then it got really silent, and then they just disappeared. Now some of the parents believed that these 5 young men were not their sons because they would always help people in need. They wouldn't just walk away. But Joseph clearly saw 5 men, so it had to have been them because this was the exact same area and same time where they disappeared. So assuming that it was them, then who was this lady with the baby? Now months went by and there were no signs of these men. But then in June of that year, some bikers saw a cabin in the woods and they wanted to go check it out. And as they were approaching, they noticed a horrible smell, and thinking the worst, they called the sheriff. The sheriff stated that it smelled like death, and inside there was the dead body of Ted. Now what they found out next is the reason I wanted to cover this case, and why some people refer to it as America's Dyatlov Pass, because it just makes no sense. It was determined that Ted lived in that cabin for 12 weeks. He slowly froze and starved to death. But in that cabin, there was tons of food as well as warm clothes. But he didn't eat any of the food or even make a fire. He could have easily survived until summer. And if that wasn't strange enough, this cabin was 20 miles away from where they parked their car. And that night when they left, it was freezing cold and they were not even dressed for this weather. Ted even told his mom before he left that he wasn't going to need his coat. And not only was this cabin 20 miles away, but it was also uphill. Even for some of the best hikers in the world, this would have seemed like an impossible task, considering the conditions at the time, as well as the clothes that they were wearing. Now after a long search, they did find the remains of the other men close to this cabin, except for Gary, and Gary is still missing to this day. And when they found Ted, Ted had covers over his body, so he wasn't alone in that cabin. Now Gary was a schizophrenic, and some believe that this case is nothing more than foul play, either by Gary or by someone else, maybe that woman with the baby. But no one can deny the paranormal aspects of this case, such as why didn't Ted eat any of the food or put on warm clothes? How could he and the other men make it 20 miles to that cabin? And why didn't they help Joseph? Now before I decided to make this video, the first thing I did was look up the location where they disappeared. And to my surprise, this is one of the biggest missing 411 hotspots in all of North America. So I'm going to do some more research to see if there are any other cases in this location similar to this one. Until next time, this is Paranormal Junkie. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned.